Hi guys, welcome to my first ever actual video on this game, Bleach Soul Resonance. Today I want to show you how to play Yoruichi, how to build Yoruichi, and just how she works in general. So right here, this is my main account. My Yoruichi is 53k in power and this is global. I did not choose this life. Yoruichi just kept showing up on the banner and the roles and everything like that. So it kind of just became a case where, you know what, I'm going to deal with the cards that I've been given, especially since Toshiro and Bankai were just very, very unkind, both of them requiring pity on both the stamp and the actual character itself. So I really just heavily invest in Yoruichi. So we'll start off immediately by going over what her role is and why I do consider her as the second best SSR currently in the game, even beating Toshiro until Aizen comes out, in which case he might even be better than Aizen. So Toshiro is a bit like Ichigo, where he takes quite a bit to get his mode, but when he actually does get it, he does quite insane damage. But unfortunately, Ichigo kinda still is the king in that spot where that Getsuga nuke is just crazy. Yoruichi cannot compete. In modes like multiplayer, where the true time freeze mechanic does not work, this character is the worst SSR in the game. But on the flip side, in terms of single player content where there's a challenge and you need to beat a certain boss as soon as possible, this character immediately becomes disputable as the number one SSR in the game. There is a video on my channel showing the run of Frenzy Feast 5 against Kisuke, where I am diffing Ikkaku and more importantly, wailed out Boundary 6 61,000 power Bankai Ichigos. That is where this character relies on, just because she can come online extremely quickly and has really good sustained damage output for the first minute. So let's really go through this because I've spent way too much time on this introduction. So the first thing we're going to look at is her boundaries. What you actually get from her boundaries as you get more copies, because this really does tie into her main mechanics and her niches. So Boundary Ascension 1, extra spiritual pressure on dodge. Number 2, increases Lightning Seal stack to 8, which is just a straight up damage increase, I believe. It's either crit damage or just straight up damage. Level increased by 2, a nice little avatar. The stomping strike by 100%. Unfortunately, I do not have this yet, which hampers my damage output quite a lot. Another 2 levels, and then finally, every perfect dodge, you get 30% extra crit damage, up to 3 times. Insane. 90% crit damage for free is just nuts. So now let's go over the skills. So her ultimate is going to be Shunko. This does a pretty okay amount of damage, allows her to leap certain things, and gives her a self buff, as well as a spiritual pressure rate charge, which stacks with the amount that you get from actually damaging an enemy. This is going to be really important for later concerning her weapon stamp and with just her special attack in general. Her next ability is going to be the Dark Sword. So this is going to be the Stomping Strike, where that comes into play from the Boundary Ascension. Does pretty neat damage. Your main primary use of this ability is going to be to switch in another person, like Kisuke, right? So pretty decent ability there. You got the regular counter and basic attack. Her basic chain is actually quite nice, I will just mention that. And then you got her passives. So I'm going to count her dodge as a passive here. Her dodge is what enables the true time freeze, as well as abilities like her ultimate. So essentially, every time you dodge, you gain attack speed, movement speed, and spiritual pressure. Now, if you remember, boundary 1, it gives a buff to that, so instead of 20%, we're gaining 40%. Very, very strong because of Blitz. Blitz is going to be a move that you will unlock by holding down the basic attack button, and your ult is going to give that back. So what ends up happening is you blitz, ult, blitz, counterattack, whatever order you want. And then you're going to have her passives. Her core passive is going to be the blitz, I believe. Dodges the attack, Hakuda something strike. No, it's not. Sorry, my mistake. This passive is honestly whatever. So attack. Yeah. So essentially, what this does is that every time you dodge, you're going to teleport on top of your enemy and do something straight. This ability is pretty decent. Less so for the damage, more so from the spiritual pressure that you're going to gain, and to actually teleport on top of the enemy. That's pretty damn strong. The first passive is going to be Thunderclap. This is where that boundary buff is going to come into play. This is going to make the stats go from 4 to 8 as a cap, right? So every time you use a technique, counterattack, or special attack, so this counts towards your ult looping, you're going to be able to get a self buff of strike damage by 6%. And because of your cap being 8 from the boundary ascension, which is why boundary ascensions are so important to this character, you are gaining 64% strike damage. This is insane. This is crazy. And makes it so when she comes online, she is going to be hitting for some meaty ult, and it really is not hard to manage to get that. All it takes is the first ult loot, and you're set for the whole game. Her second passive is also going to be really damn strong in terms of looping that I was saying earlier. The dodging into the blitz, into ult, and all that kind of shenanigans. This is just going to make it even stronger. So that's really all this passive does. It's triggered by perfect dodging. You perfect dodge, you do your special attack, and you're all set. So that's all there is to that one. Passive boost 3, however, is a self buff. So every time you do use your ult, for 10 seconds, you are giving yourself a self buff of 20% at max rank. Really, really damn good. And we'll find out later what makes this even better, considering the fact that this is 10-second duration on a 15-second cooldown. Now, as for the weapon stamp, yeah, every time you release an ultimate, you can do a counterattack. Really damn important. Get this stamp as soon as you can. And then, obviously, each stack of lightning steel increases Yoruichi's crit rate by an extra 12% up to 48%. This is why, and then increased special damage. This is why this character is so insane for time attack. All these passives just meld well into a character that can just do a devastating amount of damage in such a short time, compared to something like a Bankai Ichigo or Toshiro, who, to get that devastating damage, needs to farm their ult. And sometimes that can take time, compared to Yoruichi, who can just get her ult within the first 10 seconds if you are optimal enough. So now let's get into her actual stamps before we go on to gameplay tips. So for the primary stamp, you're going to want Raging Thunder. Every time you get this stamp, it's just going to increase her ultimate damage. She's also going to increase her spiritual pressure charge. Really, really good. And then increase of Shunko by 5 seconds. This means that if you time it correctly, you will never ever run out of your self-stim or self-install. It's going to be there at all times, which means that you're going to have a permanent buff to yourself, right? The spiritual pressure charge means that you can then do blitz more and more and keep doing those loops. The ultimate damage just is a straight up damage increase for an ultimate that without it will do quite pitiful damage, right? As for stamps, for the first one, you're going to want the primary to either be strike or attack percent. A general rule is defense, HP, or flat damage is usually a dead stamp. And as for secondary stats, you're going to want crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, and a nice little ultimate charge boost there. So the second stamp, you're going to want the primary damage bonus to be crit damage, right? With supports like Komamura and with her own kind of self buffs, she is not going to have an issue generating crit chance, and her crit chance is tied to, I believe, her weapon stamp, which we'll go over as well. And then the secondary stats are going to be the same. As for the third stamp, you're going to want that to be attack percent as well. Having these three stamps with these three primary stats is going to go a long way. You can always farm for better stamps in the future. Just prioritize getting those three primary stats so far. And as for the actual passives on these stamps, alt damage is always nice to have as a general rule. So with that being said, let's get into the team building of this character. Now, the first thing I need to mention is what works well with Yoruichi. A must-have, in my opinion, for every single team is going to be Urahara with his weapon core stamp. Having that 60% extra damage as well as that insane buff to crit damage on his ultimate is just a must-have. And to pair with that, you're going to want as much ult charges as possible so you don't have to be farming for that ult. You want to be able to send him out, use his clone, and get the ult off as soon as possible so then Yoruichi can do a thing and you're not wasting time with Urahara on the battlefield. As for the third slot, you have multiple choices. She is probably the only character in the game currently who is able to do this. So the first and most obvious option is going to be Komamura. Komamura is really good. He offers a shield, which unfortunately does not work so well for Yoruichi, considering she doesn't really want to be hit, but it's good for insurance. He has a crit chance buff, strike resistance down, and if you do have Ascension 1, which I really do hope you do if you are going to be using him, he also gives 30% crit damage, even more crit damage to stack on top of everything else. But this character is not really worth using, in my opinion, currently compared to what I will be showing next. He's too slow. And he kind of counteracts Yoruichi's niche of wanting to get a fight over as soon as possible, rather than anything prolonged, right? This character, every third strike, he is going to force himself on the battlefield and play a lengthy cutscene, right? Yes, he does do strike resistance down when he does this, but it's not worth it in the long run, right? So that's my advice for him. Now, the second team that I really want to highlight, which is actually, in my opinion, the best team you could really go for right now for these events. Easier to use, generally the same DPS as an Ascension 1 Komamura, and is just generally less confusing for the AI in most cases, is going to be Nemu. So we're talking a Yoruichi, Nemu, and Kisuke lineup, no tactical. And I have heard so many bashing on this team saying you can't have a team without tactic. You can. And this is due to the fact that Kisuke is a must-have, and the support that Nemu can actually bring while being off-field at a boundary 6 is going to be more than Komamura provides, considering the fact that for most of the fight, she is going to be off the field. In a 1-minute fight, she is coming on the field once, and that is it. And when she comes on the field, she is there for 2 seconds. You are doing your kick, you are doing your punches, and then you are doing your ult, switching out to Kisuke or Yoruichi. And that's it. That's all you will see of her. The downside of this team is that you do need her boundary 6, and you do need her stamps for it to work. Otherwise, she is even slower than Komamura. The last team I really want to highlight here is going to be Orihime. Orihime, Kisuke, and Yoruichi. Now, I recommend this team if you are farming AFK with the AI. I recommend this team if you don't have Komamura Ascension 1, and it's for these two reasons. The DPS numbers between a Komamura and an Inoue team are extremely similar. Komamura will be getting higher damage numbers than an Orihime team, but it is by such an insignificant amount that it just will not matter. And as for AFK farming, it's not even close to time that you're saving. The AI will get confused. The AI will keep wanting to switch in Komamura, using his ult, wasting a ton of time. Meanwhile, with Orihime, the AI uses her skill, switches in Yoruichi, maybe does a few attacks, goes Kisuke for the ult, whatever, and then just will focus on Yoruichi. And that is why I really do recommend her. So in terms of priority, I would say focus on the Nemu team, then the Komamura team, especially if you have Ascension 1. And lastly, if you don't have Komamura or Boundary 6 Nemu, definitely rock with the Orihime team. Rukia is an honorable mention, but I feel like she just doesn't do anything special compared to the other ones that I have mentioned. As for gameplay tips, you are going to be wanting to keep Yoruichi on the field at most points in the game. The way it generally wants to work is that you're going to want Yoruichi to be sent out third, right? Or second if you're using Nemu. You're going to want to get all the buffs up first. Hopefully, if you do have a really well-built Kisuke, you can get his ult off, and then you are just farming for that Yoruichi ult. A really important thing is that you generally want 6 stacks of Kisuke's passive before you ult, just for the extra damage, and then obviously definitely a Kisuke ult since it increases everything. In terms of fighting, you're going to be wanting to well time your dashes as well as possible. You're going to want to get those dashes off and counterattacks as much as possible. A good rule of thumb is you're going to want to dodge when you do your special attack. This is because your special attack, for the most part, is immune to most damage since you are on top of the head of the enemy. And then by the time you land, if they are in the middle of an animation, you will have time to dodge and get that passive off. You'll then want to do your special attack depending on what situation you're in. If you got the Kisuke ult and his stacks off, you're going to want to go immediately into an ult and just redo that rotation. If on the other hand you do not, you're going to want to mid-animation, change to Kisuke, do his shenanigans, and then right into his ult into a Yoruichi ult. Very important for just in general gameplay, you are going to want to swap out your characters mid-animation. This is just so you can keep sustained DPS. And that's really about it. She really is not that complicated. You just want to perfect her roots and her loops as well as just keeping an eye on your buffs. You don't want those buffs to run out. Nemu is very easy to keep an eye on. Komamura is very easy to keep an eye on. Orihime, you need to check every now and again, but for the most part, she is pretty easy as well. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video and this little guide on the character that I definitely have put the most time into and really enjoy. And we'll see, maybe more showcases in the future.